Well, first off, I'm sympathetic to what Trump has gone through in this particular trial because I think it was not proper due process for him. I would say the same thing if it was Biden or anyone else in that process. So I want to be
But
clear
why,
on
and
that.
would
With
you mind
regard
telling
to,
us, tell us why you think he didn't get due process? The proceedings, we had reporters in there. I was there for a lot of it. There was a judge and he adjudicated a lot of these questions. Why do you think he wasn't given a fair process?
In today's video, Abby Phillip completely shuts down Dr. Phil on Newsnight with Abby Phillip by clearly explaining that when Dr. Phil tries to paint every legal case as politically motivated, it ignores how the justice system actually works, and Abby makes it very clear that selective prosecution is not proven by feelings or opinions but by real evidence. And right now the evidence shows that the people facing charges are being charged because of their actions, not because they are political celebrities. So let's get into how Abby Phillip firmly pushes back on Dr. Phil during this intense exchange on Newsnight with Abby Phillip.
And joining me now, Dr. Phil, whose interview with the former president just aired. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. You're clearly sympathetic to Trump, but you believe that he should drop this talk of revenge. Did he commit to not pursuing that if he was elected president?
Well, first off, I'm sympathetic to what Trump has gone through in this particular trial because I think it was not proper due process for him. I would say the same thing if it was Biden or anyone else in that process. So I want to be clear on that.
Would you mind telling us, tell us why you think he didn't get due process? The proceedings, we had reporters in there. I was there for a lot of it. There was a judge and he adjudicated a lot of these questions. Why do you think he wasn't given a fair process?
Well, I think it's a number of things. I think from a jury standpoint, and again, let me be clear, I'm not a lawyer. I look at it in terms of what the jury was given to solve this puzzle. And I think they heard some things that were very prejudicial that had nothing to do with solving the problem of the case at hand. I think there are some things that are considered black letter law or hornbook law that's just really not something that is controversial at all that was violated. I think you don't have someone that is considered to be an accomplice in a crime that has pled out or made a non-prosecution agreement and allow that information into the jury's awareness because it's very prejudicial and is not really probative of anything that they're asked to be problem solving or consider.
Who are you referring to there?
Michael Cohen.
Yeah. Dr. Phil, I don't want to get too deep into the law here, but it is not uncommon at all for people who are accomplices to crimes, people who have taken plea deals, non-prosecute. That is not uncommon at all for those people to then testify in subsequent trials for their alleged co-conspirators. That's kind of how a lot of these prosecutions work.
Well, really, give me examples of where that has been considered appropriate.
Look, prosecutors are prosecuting organized crime all the time, and in a lot of those cases, they are relying on co-conspirators to put people who are at the higher levels of the organization behind bars. I don't understand how you can say that because someone signed was not prosecuted, signed a non-prosecution agreement, that information or their testimony cannot be presented before the jury if they were a part of the alleged scheme.
Well, you'll have to give me an example to respond to because I just simply don't agree with that. I think it's not typical for juries to do this. I've spent most of my career.
It happens in mob cases all the time. I don't understand. Look, Dr. Phil, I don't understand why you would think that Michael Cohen, who is a key person in a lot of the narrative here, should not have been allowed to testify in this case. Is that what you're saying?
What makes Dr. Phil's position even harder to take seriously is that Trump's own Justice Department routinely used cooperating witnesses in cases involving gangs, drug trafficking, corruption, and terrorism, and no one on the right objected at the time because they understood this as a normal part of how justice works. And Cohen's testimony was not randomly accepted since it was supported by documents, call records, emails and checks, which is exactly why cooperating witnesses are used, because their statements must be verified, a fact Dr. Phil avoids because admitting it would destroy his entire narrative, and the idea that Trump was denied due process simply does not line up with reality because he had full legal protections as his lawyers filed motions, raised objections, challenged witnesses and even had the chance to put Trump on the stand, which he personally declined. A choice that was his to make, but not proof of a broken system, because what is really happening here is that Dr. Phil is labeling the process unfair not due to any legal violation but because he disliked the outcome, which is not a legal case but political messaging wrapped in courtroom language, and Abby is right to push back on that because the moment we claim a lawful criminal trial is invalid simply because a former president feels uneasy, we are no longer debating law but slowly weakening the justice system itself.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I said what I said. I think the fact that he made an agreement to say that he is guilty of the crime that the defendant is being tried for prejudices the jury that, hey, here's someone that's supposedly an accomplice that has said, I'm guilty of this. That prejudices a jury about the person that's currently on trial for the same crime.
I have some quibbles with what you're describing as the same crime. Michael Cohen was not charged with falsifying business records. That he actually did not was not prosecuted for that crime. But I do want to move on because on this issue of what Trump is going to do if he is elected, did you get any clarity from him about whether he would try to pursue the people perhaps who pursued him, DAs or his political enemies?
Well, certainly that's a big ip, and I lean very strongly into the position of saying, look, this is not going to help this country. If you get into a position of power and your agenda is one of revenge, retribution, saying, okay, you came after me, so now I'm going to come after you, America picks up the tab for that. That's not anything that's good to do. That's going to take up time. That's just playing tit for tat. So you go after them because they came after you, then they come after you because they go after them. In the meantime, what about America? What about the business of America? What about the issues of education? What about the issues of the border? What about the issues of inflation? What about the issues of healthcare? What about all the things that the people really care about? They're not interested in you playing gotcha with the people that you think got you. We're not interested in that. Nobody's interested in that. And
how did
calling
you
on
respond to that when that's your perspective. What do you sense is his inclination? Because just today, he said, for example, that he would indict the January 6th committee members, presumptively the members of Congress who were on that committee investigating what happened on January 6th. Are you more or less convinced after sitting down with him that he actually would follow through on those kinds of pledges?
Well, I actually don't think he will. I think this is a situation that, it's a process. This is something that I think he's had in his mind, that there's only one way to go, and that's to get even. And I think I've really made some headway with him that is not the way to go. I think it's a process. I think he'll turn this over and over in his mind, and I don't think he will do that. And to the extent that I have any opportunity to lean into this with him, I am going to relentlessly try and get him to not do that and to get others to not do that.
Dr. Phil's stance also ignores a basic reality because Trump had every legal edge that money, influence and power can provide, as his lawyers challenged evidence, filed motions, questioned witnesses, secured delays, and still he chose not to testify or present a defense, which is not a denial of due process but a calculated strategy he has relied on for decades. And where Abby is especially accurate is in highlighting Trump's repeated promises to go after his political enemies, because this is where the consequences become serious, since the United States has historically maintained a clear boundary between political authority and criminal prosecution, and even during heated moments like Watergate, Iran-Contra, or the Clinton impeachment, no president openly threatened to jail members of Congress or former officials simply for investigating him. And that kind of language is not just reckless but mirrors the tactics used by leaders in places like Turkey, Hungary, Venezuela and Russia where criminal law is turned into a weapon for political payback, because once a president treats prosecution as just another political tool, the justice system stops being neutral and becomes an extension of whoever holds power. Which is exactly why Abby's questions matter so much, since Dr. Phil is banking on the hope that Trump would not actually act on these threats, even though Trump has been saying this openly for years, and history shows that when it benefits him politically he follows through, as seen when he pressured the Justice Department to investigate Hillary Clinton.
Look, we need to stop this. This is a time where America needs to come together, not be playing gotcha and going on some kind of revenge tour. We don't need that. We don't have time for that. It's not good for America. We need to unify, not be going after people that we think came after us, whether we think they did so fairly or otherwise.
Yeah, it sounds like
we don't need that. The last thing we need is for Trump to be going after people that he thinks have treated him unfairly.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you are personally taking it upon yourself to talk through this with him. But for the voters who are evaluating this very issue, Donald Trump is explicitly saying, I'm going to prosecute my predecessor, Joe Biden, if I'm elected. He's explicitly saying he wants to go after his political enemies. He will go after the members of Congress who were doing their jobs investigating what happened on January 6th. Don't voters need to weigh that, especially since the argument that Trump is making with no evidence is that Biden is going after him?
Well, I think they absolutely have to weigh that. And if they think that Donald Trump or any other candidate is going to do that, then, and they think that is not what I'm putting somebody in office for, then they absolutely shouldn't vote for them. I don't think that's what we're putting people in office to do. That's running their agenda instead of America's agenda. And we need people to run America's agenda. Look, we've got serious problems, and it takes serious people to deal with those problems. I'm not a political animal. It doesn't matter to me whether somebody's Democrat or Republican. I could care less, don't know enough about politics to talk about it intelligently. But I can tell you this, from a cultural standpoint, we need people working on the problems that are impacting the quality of life in America, impacting the quality of medical care, impacting the quality of education, impacting the quality of people's ability to feed and take care of their families. And that doesn't leave room to be playing gotcha and retribution and revenge. That's not what we need. We need people to get in there and do their jobs. And if not, they shouldn't have the privilege. That's not a legacy, it's a privilege. And we shouldn't be putting people in office that want to play those kind of games.
Dr. Phil frequently talks about wanting thoughtful leaders to prioritize education, health care, and overall quality of life, but the truth is that a government cannot function properly on those fronts if a president spends his time attacking investigators, going after critics, and turning political disagreements into criminal revenge. Because history makes it clear that authoritarian cycles never produce better schools or stronger health systems, and instead lead to corruption, instability, and an emptied civil service where qualified professionals refuse to serve out of fear. And when he presents himself as non-political, it overlooks a key point, because neutrality does not mean ignoring reality. As every independent legal body that has examined Trump's cases, including the ACLU, the Federal Bar Association, and several former Republican Justice Department officials, has said the same thing, that prosecutions are legitimate when supported by evidence, which is the justice system doing its job. While choosing to prosecute or protect someone based on who they are is political abuse, so Americans should seriously consider Trump's promises, because the danger is not limited to what he might do to Joe Biden or members of Congress, but what this mindset would mean for every future administration. Since once political prosecution is treated as a normal campaign pledge, the line separating democracy from strongman politics fades away, and real unity is not achieved by denying these risks but by standing up for the rule of law, so that every American, whether they support Trump, oppose him, or feel neutral, understands that the justice system belongs to the country and not to one man.